So
Yeah, Nick.
here we are for our Hug Event double feature, and here with me today, CEO from Refuel Creative, Ryan Jones, and Nick Dzienny, our superstar channel account manager at HubSpot. I'm fairly certain you're fairly well known around the traps, I think.
Superstar. I don't get called that very often, so I'll take it.
I might be biased, but I've always thought that you've been very helpful. So thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our Hug event today. We're thrilled to be, I guess, coming off a high after Inbound last week, where there have been some pretty fantastic product announcements, some of which were completely new features, while some of the others were really just kind of expanding on the growth that we've seen from HubSpot over the past 12 months, particularly with the launch of Operations Hub and certainly those accessible CMS Starter Hub plans. Really, really exciting stuff. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over the reins to Nick, as he'll be taking us through some slides and some of the key highlights and product highlights from Inbound this year. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Rubina. I have some slides which are, I guess, just a bit of a recap of what was covered at Inbound. Still, I'm trying to keep up and catch up on a lot of the stuff that happened at Inbound, but I think on the product, we can address most of that. Hope Rubina and Ryan jump in and add their 2 cents as well, as far as what they see as exciting or something that they see valuable going forward. But also would mention there is a nice little chat pane here, so feel free to jump in, ask questions, and I'll do my very best to answer them on the fly if I can. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. And let's see here. I'm just going to break this out into a new window. One moment. And can you guys let me know if you are able to see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and if I put this in present mode, does that still work for you as well?
Yep.
It does. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to, oops, I just jumped out of present mode. I'm just going to jump through this slide deck and cover some of the main pieces that came out of Inbound. I will actually send this deck to the team here as well, so they can share. These are full links here. This deck itself sends some more information about our pricing and the kind of product catalog, as well as some things that are coming in the future that you can keep your eyes out on. So if you did catch Inbound, you would have seen that we've kind of doubled down on our positioning as, I guess, a CRM business, and HubSpot kind of being the go-to CRM for growing businesses, and how it's really it should be at the heart of organizations looking to grow. So this year was no different. We spent a lot of time talking about how a lot of businesses are, in lack of better terms, kind of stuck with their set of systems and what they're capable of doing. And so rather than thinking of creative solutions for their customers, instead they're thinking about how can they best use their software. Not thinking about the experience first, but what is the software capable of? And so we're trying to kind of flip that around and kind of think about how we can remove that rigidity and help businesses, I guess, address that head on. So why don't I jump straight into some of the product stuff, and I'll start here. We can kind of categorize all of the releases really into 3 kind of core buckets, and that was making a CRM platform that's more customizable, that's more connected, and more kind of customer first. And so customizable meaning how can you actually configure or change the way that the data is presented or how your team interacts with the CRM. so that it is fitting to your business, your unique business model. More connected, meaning how can we actually use the data that HubSpot is collecting? How can we collect more data from within HubSpot or through third-party apps that integrate with HubSpot? And how can we actually take some of those data sets and make them work in a way that we can report more effectively and understand, what is actually what is the outcomes of some of the strategies that we're putting in place, and then more customer first. So I think some of the fun and exciting things announced were on the customer first side, and a lot around how what people expect, what your customers expect these days is a much better experience. They want to be able to buy on their own time. They want to be able to self-serve, and so we've made some pretty exciting announcements on the customer first front that will make it easier for your customers to work with you guys. So here's a couple quick at a glance updates, and I'll jump into these in more detail. But on the customizable front, we'll talk about sandboxes. We'll talk about some of the new admin kind of capabilities for your system admins. We'll talk about, on the more connected front, the release of Operations Hub Enterprise and some of the things that we're doing with our reporting modules. And then on the customer first front, I'm very excited. And if you follow HubSpot stock at all, I'm not sure if it can be directly correlated to payments, but I think payments has created a lot of buzz, something that we're really excited about, as well as some things that that we've been talking about for a really long time, like customer portals in the Service Hub and custom surveys and things of that nature. So we'll touch on all of that in more detail. Okay, here we go. We're diving. So we'll start with customizable CRM, and where we're going to start here is with sandboxes. And so, I guess in a nutshell, a sandbox is essentially a mirror environment of your existing HubSpot subscription. You can actually take the existing data within your platform and create a mirror version of that in kind of a safe environment. And the thinking behind this is we know that businesses like to test things, try new things, and we know how much conflict that can create for the day-to-day operations of a business. If you're trying to change your pipelines, if you're trying to experiment with different workflows while individuals are actually using some of that data, it can create a lot of problems. And so building these standalone sandbox environments will allow your technical teams, your operations teams to try and test things within your existing HubSpot instance without having to sacrifice, the day-to-day operations and mess around with the existing data in the platform. And so sandboxes is something that we are releasing at any enterprise level hub. So whether you're on marketing, sales, service, CMS, or operations enterprise. Very exciting stuff there. This one has been highly sought after from customers for some time, so we're excited to announce some updates to the way that records within HubSpot can be associated. And so if you've been with HubSpot for some time, you know that kind of the standard objects that are part of the HubSpot CRM are contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. Obviously, we've recently released, or not recently, but within the last kind of year or two, the ability to create custom objects. But there's always only been kind of a single association level with those objects. So we're now changing that. You now have the ability to flexibly associate multiple company records with contacts, deals, or tickets. There will be more improvements coming on the associations side of things, that flexible association side of things as we go forward. But I think a really kind of good example of this is, if I work at a company and I am, the head of operations, but I also am an advisor at 2 other companies. Previously, there was no really easy way within HubSpot to save that contact, where now you might have that contact associated to multiple companies, and then you can use these labels to define how that individual is related to that company. So from a day-to-day experience, your teams will be able to see really quickly, how Nick is associated with these 3 companies, and that might impact how they engage with him from a sales or service perspective. But it also has downstream impact on some of the other tools. So things like if you wanted to build a list or a filtered view of anyone in your database that is considered an advisor at a company. Or if you wanted to actually build workflows and nurture, members of your database that have that are involved in multiple organizations. You might coin them as an entrepreneurial persona, for example. So it is connected. Those labels are connected to other tools. So this thing, this release of kind of flexible associations is something we're really excited about, and this is just the first stage of that release. Business units. Rubina did mention, I think one thing that was a little bit different this year is to previous years is, a lot of the things that came out or that we announced, there was some brand new stuff that we announced at Inbound, but some of it we've kind of slowly released throughout the year, and Inbound kind of acted as an opportunity to kind of strategically announce how they're aligned with the growth of the platform going forward. So business units did become available. I think it was about 2 months ago, but it's essentially just a much stronger way to manage multiple brands within HubSpot. Now, we've always had that ability to buy additional brand domains. We've gone ahead and kind of changed that and broken that down into 2 separate products, whether it's business units or our domains add-on, because we know that nowadays, most businesses, most kind of modern businesses do have multiple brands. They do have multiple subsidiaries. They are making acquisitions. How they think about those businesses interacting within a single database is a challenge. And so this is the first of many releases into how to make a single database and a single kind of CRM platform a single source of truth for multiple brands. And so what you'll see, whereas before it was a bit clunky on how you kind of, I guess, partitioned and permissioned your team access across those brands, now, when you're logging into your marketing tools, your workflows, your emails, you can toggle by brand, you can toggle by user and what access level they have. Your social posts, you can toggle by brand. So it's just been incorporated into all of the tools in a much more kind of usable fashion, so that if you are a business that has multiple brands and you're thinking about how I can kind of move them all under one roof, this functionality will allow you to do that. Permissions and governance. So over time, we've been adding more and more layers to the way that you can essentially set rules around what access different users have within HubSpot. And we know that this is particularly challenging for admins or admins within the system to make sure that only the right individuals have the right access. And so in previous, there was a certain level or a certain amount of categories that you had access or control over. We've almost doubled all those. You'll notice in this picture here, pretty much every kind of product or app within HubSpot can be permissioned, as well as some access to different reporting, dashboards, a lot of different activity can be permissioned. And what we've also done is we've introduced almost like a wizard. So it makes it easier for you to build out certain roles so that as you're adding new users into HubSpot, you can essentially assign them a role, and there's a preset of permissions so that it's easier for you to add users on the fly and not have to do that from scratch every time. So that's currently in beta, but will be released publicly very shortly as well. So that is on the kind of flexible side of things. I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to do we have time for questions, or is there anything that's come through the chat? Rubina, I think you're on.
I actually dropped something on the chat so that I wouldn't forget about it. Just on that multiple company association front, Nick. So I had a client come to me the other day and asked me a question, and I am still trying to figure out the best answer here. But essentially, she's got people in her CRM who have different email addresses, but they're the same person. They've changed their email address because they've moved from company A to company B, and now they're at company C. And trying to, I guess, once they move from company A, they're then moving to company B. Her question was, well, how can I sort of connect those contacts together? Because while the email addresses are different and therefore they're treated as individuals, essentially she still wants to know that association of that person. And I guess having those multiple companies, I suppose you can then add their sort of previous employers to that contact record. But I assume that would still be quite a manual process at this point, because I think that's the email address is the key unique identifier as far as HubSpot is concerned.
So you might have answered your own question in that a little bit, but I think the short answer is every time you add a new email address into HubSpot, it's going to create a new contact, right? That's the unique identifier within HubSpot. So if someone moves to a new company, they have a new email address, it's probably going to create another Rubina at a different company. Yes. However, if you wanted to maintain the previous contact of Rubina within that CRM, you could associate Rubina to her new employer and then create a custom label that was called previous role or previous employed, or previously employed at. And so it would just be a visual record to your team if they're looking at that record before they pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, how's life over at such and such? And they put their foot in their mouth. They'll see on the record that you're actually associated to another business now. So that would be manual in some form, but to be honest, it's probably something where like your customer facing teams find out on the fly and then they just update the record accordingly.
No, and I think that's part of it. I think with this particular client, the industry that they work in, there's a lot of movement between the different operators and businesses and whatnot. So that's something that she's trying to, because she's offering training services, she follows the people, not the organization. So I think that's where the challenges come in for her. But that's certainly a way around it for sure.
Okay.
Great. Cool. Well, at this stage, I can't see any questions from the floor in the chat. Ryan, did you have any follow-ups that you wanted to add at this point?
No, I was only going to be cheeky, so I don't need to put Nick through that today. That's fine.
Save it for later, mate. All right, we'll keep moving then. I'll steamroll right past you on that, Ryan. So we're now talking a little bit more about the connected CRM platform, and obviously one of the big announcements that did come out of Inbound was the addition of our newest hub, which is Operations Hub, and the inclusion of a enterprise level tier. And one of the big kind of pieces to the enterprise function is what we're calling data sets. And data sets is essentially the ability to silo certain sets of information and essentially make it available to different teams. So you might have teams that are in marketing, or teams that are in recruiting, or teams that are in sales, and they're all trying to build their own reports, and they're probably messing with a lot of the data. They probably have access to too much data, which makes it more difficult for them to self-service and build those reports. So this data sets tool is essentially for your analysts and your admins that want to ensure that the data that the rest of the team has available to them is tailored and is accurate. We've also released a lot more functionality around the ability to update data across your database and format it in different ways so that you can ensure that any reporting that is coming out of HubSpot is as accurate as possible. The last kind of piece that I would mention on the Operations Hub Enterprise release is a native integration with Snowflake, which is the largest, or one of the largest kind of data warehouse platforms out there. So with that connection, it should again help analysts who are perhaps using something like Snowflake to connect those data sets directly from HubSpot and Snowflake and vice versa. So perhaps a little bit above my pay grade. I'm no analyst, but there's some really good resources that we'll be releasing on this, and some knowledge base articles as well. The Ops Hub Enterprise is coming on the 1st of November. On the topic of, I guess, collecting more data, we have kind of repackaged and re-released the custom behavioral events tools within HubSpot. What are custom behavioral events? It's essentially the ability to set triggers around, your website or your app, for example, to start tracking kind of the minute behaviors that contacts might be taking. So HubSpot's cookie tracking will automatically pick up some things on your website, but other elements like, how long has someone watched a video, or when someone signed up for a trial, how much have they actually used that trial? What has the product engagement been like? Are people actually engaging with different parts of your app? You can use custom behavioral events to set triggers and track all of that activity, that kind of unique kind of activity, and that will all live again on the contact record in the timeline, which will then have that downstream effect where you can start to build segments and lists, and you can start to build nurturing streams around, for example, how is someone engaged with a trial account that you may be offering up as kind of a lead gen opportunity for your database or your prospects. So just kind of adding an additional layer of tracking with a couple simple tools, so that you guys can do a lot more sophisticated and tailored marketing, or report on the impact of, again, bit of a used example, but the trial example, you might want to report on what's the likelihood that customers close from a trial, and looking at their usage and engagement might be a big piece of that. Now on that, if we're collecting the data, if we have a system to organize and format and kind of collate that information in different data sets, we obviously want to build reporting on that as well. So we've re-released our custom report builder with a really kind of simple and friendly drag and drop interface. And kind of one of the big things that is different to this is we've extended the amount of types of information that you can build reports on. So whether it's not just kind of the static object and property information, but also activity data as well. So you can look at things like calls logged, voicemails left, custom tracking events, custom object engagement. It really is extended to all of the different touch points in HubSpot are available at your fingertips to build those custom reports. That is available to all professional and enterprise hub customers across any product. Something that we released a couple months back, but I think very relevant to those using HubSpot from a sales perspective is some more detailed forecasting functionality, as well as the forecasting homepage. So alongside using things like goals, you can set essentially rep attainment, or a target or a quota, you might call it. And then depending on their pipeline, what's set to close one, the amount of the value or the amount of that deal closed, that will help populate this forecast view. And what it does is, not only does it give kind of the operations or the leadership side of the business a good sense of where their team is from a attainment perspective, but it allows managers, sales managers, or service managers to have really strong conversations around the kind of deal potential and kind of one-on-one opportunities to discuss deal reviews, to see where a rep might be at in a sales process, and how they're forecasting it based on their understanding of the stage that it's at, and help the kind of business plan based on some of those. So in this case, you'll see here, like, we have a low, a medium, and a high probability. Reps could set that in a property on a deal record, and then that would pull all those deals in, and that would obviously roll up to a global view of all reps, low, medium, and high probability, as well as kind of a manual forecast submission. So this is I think a really practical tool for anyone who has a number of sales reps and doesn't really have a clear view on what the accumulated kind of value of that rep activity looks like, or service reps, I should say, if they have a kind of a KPI on retention, revenue retention, or anything of that nature. So this one we're pretty excited about, and we use it here at HubSpot quite closely. So I'm having a lot of conversations with my manager right within this view as well. So I will move on to the final section, which is the more customer centric, but again, I'm just going to pull out here and stop. Was there anything in the chat? It doesn't look like it. Any questions popped up that I've missed? Everyone's sick of hearing my voice yet? I hope not.
Your dulcet tones are lovely. They're lovely.
It's the American accent, it's not for everybody.
Oh, well, we'll pick it up with it for today. There's no point in claiming. But I will say that forecasting tool, I think, is a great sort of, I guess, evolution there, because certainly for some of our sales clients, HubSpot sales customers, I should say, that has been one of the trickier things to report on, where looking at trying to understand where their sales team are at, where how their performance is actually going, being able to see it tangible against potential goal attainment and that sort of thing. I think all of a sudden just simplifies that process from a sales management perspective, because I think that's certainly in my experience with developing custom reports for clients within HubSpot, certainly sometimes you run into some limitations of what the report can show. Certainly for me, year on year has been a comparison chart has been incredibly difficult to pull together. And Nick, I don't know if that's ever going to be on the slate, but it would be amazing if we could somehow pull that off, because I think certainly that's going to help. Looking at them now, the customer report builder has still, I think, while it is a huge advancement, particularly for everyone who does have access to it on those pro and enterprise levels, there still are some limitations that we try to work around our best, so that we can actually visually see what's going on with our clients and help them to understand too what their sales teams are doing.
So I'm not personally announcing any new changes to here today, unfortunately. I'm just repeating what has come out of inbound. However, because you have put me on the spot, there is more stuff coming through the pipeline on the custom reporting and the data set front. I did a little bit of a review in some of our internal documentation before this, just to make sure I was up to date on kind of what everything is and how everything works. And there are a handful of kind of low-hanging fruit items that our product team is looking at, specifically on the custom reporting side of things. And so I can't say, I don't know for sure if building those kind of comparison tables or anything like that is in that short list, but you will see us put a lot of calories into that going forward, and really just making sure that if customers are trying to collect as much data as they can in HubSpot, that they can build reports out of it as well. That's the key. We don't want customers using other systems, and so that's what we're working towards. So that's the best political answer I can give you there, Rubina. But we will move on, and let me just go ahead and jump straight into the customer-centric side of the CRM platform, the kind of last category that I mentioned. The big one, and albeit kind of an asterisk next to this, not available in ANZ just yet. So exciting, yet not quite here for us. Only available to our US customers in a beta. But it is very exciting to see us move in this direction, is the introduction of HubSpot payments. So essentially the ability to build a full-blown checkout and payment processing solution that's directly connected to your website, to your CRM, and kind of the impact that can have in the way that you store kind of transactional data in your CRM on a contact record. Think about, selling one-off services if you're an agency or a service provider. Think about selling subscriptions to your products in a recurring fashion. Obviously, being able to build reporting on that, being able to nurture customers based on their spend or their previous spend, or bucket them based on your highest paid customers over time. A lot of this stuff was often done through integrations in the past, with Stripe and other kind of payment processing tools. Being able to have it natively within HubSpot and kind of have a no-code solution kind of ready to go, kind of baked right into the platform, is something we're super, super excited about. And hopefully we'll, the big picture thinking is, how do we reduce friction in the purchasing path that your customers go through? And if it's not easy to buy from you, then that might be the difference between them going to you or a competitor. And so how can we kind of streamline that process? And payments is a big part of that. So very exciting one there. This one, I believe, we'll probably spend a little bit of time talking about later today, but it's around the CMS. And you may know that we've kind of doubled down on our kind of positioning as a provider of your content management solution, your CMS, your website within HubSpot. We've recently introduced a real great entry-level product in our CMS starter, which really allows you to do quite a bit for as low as, I think, $30 per month. So a very kind of robust solution at a very kind of light investment. And the key here being having a website that's natively connected to your CRM, thinking about, how can I provide a more personalized experience to the individuals that come to my website? Well, if it's connected to my CRM, I know if they're a customer, or if they're a prospect, or if my salesperson has spoken to them today, or if they were a previous customer, and that might impact how you want them to, I guess, explore or experience your website. So that, along with all of the benefits of having a safe, secure, high-speed, SEO-enabled kind of website that comes as part of the CMS package, is very exciting as well.
And we're going to be talking about that in just a minute, Nick.
We are, right? So should I move on?
Now that the internet is back on, we'll be talking about CMS Starter as soon as you're finished. So we're really excited about that too.
Yeah,
cool. This is another thing that's very exciting for any of our Service Hub customers, or those that are perhaps looking at ways to provide a better customer experience to your existing customers. The ability to build a customer-facing portal within HubSpot for customers to self-service and manage their tickets. So they come to your website, they have an issue, they can't find an answer, they submit a ticket, they want to come back and maybe check in an hour later or a day later and just see, hey, what's the status of my ticket? Has anyone actually actioned it? Has anyone sent me a response? Is there a communication thread that I can check in on? That's kind of the table stakes, I think, nowadays. People want to get to the bottom of their issues as quickly as possible. You can now build that, again, kind of like a no-code solution directly into your kind of post-sale kind of customer service model with HubSpot's customer portals. And then adding a new layer to our surveying tools. So outside of the kind of standard kind of customer satisfaction and NPS surveying functionality that's built directly into HubSpot, we've also now added kind of a fourth category, which is custom surveys, asking any custom question you want to your customers, automating when you want those surveys to go out, and obviously saving all that information back to the CRM. So no limitations as to how you what type of information you can glean from your existing customers or even prospects. So pretty exciting to have that flexibility as well. So I think I will probably wrap it up there. I do have some interesting data to share, but I think this might be something I can send after the fact, and you guys can explore this. Just looking at some of the numbers in terms of we've aggregated some data from our customers and what they've seen in terms of improvements based on their product configuration. But rather than bore you with some reports like that, I will let you do the reading. I will send this to everybody after the fact, and I hope that the Refuel team will include my information. If anyone has any questions or wants to reach out to me directly to learn about any of these products or anything else that we offer, you can obviously get in touch directly with me or with the lovely team at Refuel, and we can do our best to address your questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. That has been a really great summary. I don't think, I'm not sure about you guys, but I was really mostly watching the on-demand inbound sessions. I didn't stay up for any particular late nights. I'm not sure about you two, but you might have. The only thing I managed to catch live was Oprah, and then imagine my disappointment when it was a pre-recorded session. So you can actually ask Oprah questions. I was like, oh, well, I've just wasted my time here. Having said that, though, what a headliner to close out inbound, and she really did drive home some really strong themes of the conference, I think. And while we're really excited about all these product developments and updates, and certainly we'll be all working as hard as we can to implement them into our own business as well as our clients, realistically, you know, it comes back to intent. And I think that was one of the words I kept hearing over and over and over again as I was going through the sessions, about really focusing on why you're doing what you're doing and what value that brings to a prospective customer or an existing customer. And certainly, you know, I think we could play bingo if we looked for those keywords. I think the flywheel was one of them, intention, delight, and I think those are probably my top three in terms of buzzwords that were often repeated throughout inbound. But, you know, certainly all of those ideals underpin all of these product changes, and, you know, even bringing in custom surveys is really exciting. It might mean that we don't need to use SurveyMonkey or Momentum or whatever they've changed the name to now. You know, certainly bringing all those elements together is a really exciting time. But I'm even more excited about our next session, because we're really going to put Ryan under the pump now. Ryan is going to build us a website live in HubSpot CMS. So, you know, hopefully the internet doesn't cut out on us again, because I have no idea what happened there. We both just kind of went, what's going on? So we're currently tethering off 5G at the moment. So just as well, I have had my shot. Looks like my screen is clearer than Ryan's.
Yes, I haven't had my vax yet, so my 5G is not quite as good as Rubina's.
Alrighty then. So over to our CEO and founder, digital marketing extraordinaire, also like a tech geek as well. So let's put him to the test. Love to see what you build, Ryan. So
I am a tech geek, which means that I used to really hate HubSpot CMS. And, you know, I don't think Nick's overly surprised, because I like to tell Nick about all the things that HubSpot do that I'm not overly appreciative of. But when you look at how the CRM was 5 years ago, it was the CMS, sorry. Like, it's a very basic, rudimentary kind of like a thing that they chucked in as a last minute, because a couple of clients asked for it and they thought that it was important. And I think HubSpot, quite as eloquent as I just used, have kind of acknowledged that over the last couple of years and made some really good hires in that CMS area. The other thing that a lot of people like HubSpot, when they first launched their CMS, they kind of forget that Australia is a long way away from America. And we know that site speed is really critical to SEO these days. It's good customer experience, conversion rate, feeds into so many different digital marketing criteria. So we've really seen over the last couple of years HubSpot making some big leaps and bounds with the CMS, and making some big improvements to the overall usability. And I'm going to show you how to make a page on HubSpot's CMS Starter today. And CMS Starter for me, you know, the enterprise stuff is cool, Nick, and you know that we all love a bit of enterprise tech, and it's pretty fancy and fun. But capability that you get in CMS Starter at a price point that pretty much any business can afford is just crazy. Having this baked into your CRM to such a level, it really enables every business to start out with really good foundations and grow it out from there. A lot of people would kind of look at it and go, oh, well, it's more expensive than WordPress, because WordPress is, for those people, we've got a bit of a comparison on the cost there. I reckon that for the $30 a month that you're paying for HubSpot these days, it's pretty cost comparable to what you really pay to get a feature parity site. So, did you want to add anything there, Nick, at all, or do you want me to build a website for you?
I'm patiently but excitedly waiting to see what kind of masterpiece you can whip up for us here on the fly.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to deliver on your promise here. So let's just.
Masterpiece might be an exaggeration. I wanted to make sure today we started off pretty basic so that we could go through and look at what it looks like when you're building your first CMS Hub Starter website. So what I've done is I've gone straight into my into my portal. This is my test portal. And it's really helpful. HubSpot gives you a range of different resources here that you can go and you can learn a bit more about. And it's a lot more helpful when you can get that training and feedback from the people that actually make the product because they know the product quite well. So we have a ton of different options as part of CMS Starter. So this particular portal that I'm using is on all of the free products except CMS, where I'm obviously using CMS Hub Starter because there is no free CMS Hub, unless Nick's got a Oprah-like gift that he wants to give to everyone today. No? Okay.
Hands are tied.
So, heaps of different options here, but what I'm going to do today is follow through on the setting up the basic theme that's included in CMS Hub Starter. So you can see here it's given us some options in terms of what we should do. So it'll actually walk you through how to publish your website, how to create your account, how to connect your website domain so that you can get your website up and running. So what I need to do is select my style for my website. Now, obviously there's a ton of different ways that we can build out a website theme and we can design our site. So what I can do here is select some basic color schemes so that HubSpot will make sure that that color scheme is harmonious across the site. So what I've got here is this is the HubSpot built-in growth theme. So fonts, and really good thing to keep in mind when you're changing your fonts these days is when you are doing rebrands, try and make sure that you have a Google font alternative for any font that you want to use on your site, because more often than not, the tools that you use, Google Fonts is just going to make your life a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is just change this to our shiny new font set. So my fonts to my branded ones. So Inter for my body font and Spartan for my heading font. So I prepared my fonts earlier, and I prepared a lot of things earlier for today's session. So I've already prepared my content, I've already prepared my logos, my photos, so I can get in here and build this site nice and quickly. Because the thing that takes the time when you're building a site like these days is not the time that you put into building the website in HubSpot CMS. It's the time that you spend building the assets that you need to put on that page. So you can spend your time putting together compelling copy, great graphics, fantastic photos, and then build out your website in a matter of minutes from there. So I'm going to need some colors, and you can see here it's got which colors used for which. So used for accent background colors, used for borders, used for icons. So it's really walking me through what each font is being used for. So for things like links and buttons, Today, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. I'm going to go with a nice clickable elements. And then for my background, I'm going to shade. You can see that starts to come together with the colors. A border. So maybe I'm going to go a bit, we're a bit bold here. What we're doing here. With our icons, let's choose HubSpot Orange. Nick loves HubSpot Orange. His pajamas are HubSpot Orange. And I'm just going to, a bit too much, so I'm just going to change that back. Now, hopefully you've actually got some brand guidelines that you can use for this. But hey, look, that actually has done really well. It's not quite as out there as it initially looked. So next, I'm going to put together a bit of a dummy page on a marketing event that we run, that Nick attended a couple of years ago, which is called Social Media Day Digital Adelaide. So I am going to upload the graphics that I prepared earlier. So I'm going to go in and grab my folders. And you are all not going to look at how messy my Google Drive is. And I'm going to grab my event logos. And I want the black version because this is going on a white background. Cool. Done. So now that I've created my brand kit, all of my pages on my website are going to inherit that brand kit. So now what I want to do is go to marketing, website, and website pages. So if you're already using HubSpot for things like email marketing, maybe some landing pages, it's great because you've only got one place that you can think about the website. It's all in here. HubSpot are keeping all the security updates and things maintained for you. You don't need to worry about that. And so now I've got my website, and these are all of the pages that are contained in my website. So that's a pretty simple website here. So I'm going to create a new page, and I'm going to call this is Social Media Day Digital Adelaide. This is the quite horrifying acronym we've got for this event at the moment. And now I can choose the template that I want to use from the theme that I'm using. I'm going to talk a little bit more about themes once I've finished this particular page. But you can see here I've got 6 different page templates that are included in the theme that HubSpot have provided here. So I'm going to choose the homepage one because I'm creating a homepage, and click the select button. And HubSpot have built me a homepage. Super, super simple homepage. It's got all of these different areas that I can access, and it's also got a blog that's being pulled in here. So this blog, just for my testing, has imported in from WordPress. No problems, took a couple of minutes, away we go. Okay, so a couple of things. If you haven't used the HubSpot landing page builder before, or the CMS, you notice that I've got things happening as I move my mouse around the page. So if I this region up here, I've got my options relating to that particular section. So I've got my spacing. I can change how that looks, how the content fits on the page, adjust my padding and my margin. So I've got quite a bit of control over what I've got going on there. So what I want to do at the moment is I'm just going to replace this image. And all I need to do is go add image, upload. And again, my photos that I prepared earlier. And I am going to go with ram front. Great. So now it's starting to look a bit more like the event website because I've got my photo in there, and that will fit quite well. But equally, I'm not pinned to having that photo there. So if I choose a gradient, which is what we use on the current website, set the colors that I want to use. So at the moment we use blue and a strong pink. And I've got my gradient set up there, and now I can do my top left to bottom right. So that will keep the photo in there. But I can do all of that without having to write a single line of code, which is pretty incredible when you think about, well, if you've been doing this for a while, it's pretty full on what you can do now without touching a line of code. So I've set those two. Now what I'm going to do is change my hero text. So you can see here, I've just clicked into this area and it's become immediately editable. So website that we prepared earlier, which is our website from this year's event. So all I've got to do is copy and paste that text. And there we go. Now it's changed the color because it's inherited the color from my copy and paste. But I can change that color just by clicking up here and changing it to what I want. And I also want a bit of a heavier weight, so I've just adjusted that. Now I'm not trying to completely recreate this page, but I want to put enough in there that I can bring that information across. Cool. That's working. Now I need my Get Started button. Now I'm not going to have, I want a Buy Your Tickets Now button. So I grabbed my URL for that button and I'm going to paste that in here. HubSpot tell me where I want to link that to. So I can link that to internal content without needing to know what the URL is for that. I can link it to a file if I want to share a PDF or something like that. And then I'm going to change my button text to Buy Your Tickets Now. And I can even just simply add an icon in here. And the icon selector in HubSpot is really useful because I can just type in what I'm looking for and put my arrow in there. So I don't have icons, they're already there. It keeps it nice and simple for me. I've got my button, and my button has inherited the parent styles from my brand kit, so I don't need to customize that. But of course, I've got a ton of different options here. So the style of button, the size of the button, obviously want my Buy Your Ticket one large, change my fonts. So you can override the styling that you've got here, curve the radius of your button. You've got quite a lot of functionality there to just create the site as you see fit. Now this next section here, I'm going to change this to see speakers from companies such as, and we've got a region here where we can put images. You can see there's 4 included here. Okay. So I am going to, again, I prepared some earlier. I'm not going to do all of the ones I prepared because I think that you'll probably get a little bit bored. But let's say I'm going to include Uni SA's logo, who's our event sponsor. So I'll put that in. Now I can go back to my image gallery and I can add another one. So I'm going to add another one and I'm going to upload my ABC Adelaide logo. You notice, like a good person who needs to update their data from time to time, I've named all my files appropriately. I put good alt text in there so my search engines can see it. So now I've got 6 logos in there. So if I click my button, then it is going to commit that change so I can preview what that looks like on the page. So you can see at the moment, it shows the 6. It doesn't look too great, but I've put in some logos that are completely different sizes. So if I go to my gallery options, now I can change my image height so that they're all the same. I can change the number of columns, which is going to change the size of those. Apply those changes. I made them too big. That was silly. I'm going to be more reasonable about this. Music to Nick's ears. I'm going to just shrink the size of those logos down. So now it's going to crop them for me so they're a consistent height. So we have quite a bit of control over how they look. I can add rounded corners to them all, and I can adjust the spacing between the images and the spacing above and below. So you can see I can go through and I can keep building this out just by moving my cursor where I need to go. Copy. These cool little icon areas here, HubSpot have already built them so that you can replace the icon with whatever you want. And my favorite thing is the accessibility options here. We work with a lot of nonprofits, and being able to actually determine whether the nonprofit should ignore the icon or the person with a disability should be able to ignore or read the icon. It's really valuable to their experience when they're accessing our website. So I can keep going through this. Now there's no form in my contact area here. So pretty simple. I can choose a form that I created earlier. There's my form with my contact information. And one big change that HubSpot have made over the last couple of years, which makes my life a bit easier, is you can now edit the form fields for the form when you put them on the page. So if you drop that form into this page and you go, hey, look, I really should have included, so email, first name, last name, mobile phone, message, I really should have included website. I can add another form field and I can choose a property that's already in the CRM. And that's going to edit this form for me. And what I really like about that is when this form gets submitted, I know that the data's and it's all going to be there in the right format. So then once they've filled out this form, it'll redirect them to another page. If I have a thank you page, which is a good idea if you want to try and track your conversions through these forms through a tool like Google Analytics, or I can just display an inline thank you message. We will be soon. And all of the same form options that you might be familiar with if you've used HubSpot before, which hopefully you have if you're at a HubSpot user group event. So I put this together really quickly to show that we can put together these pages in the HubSpot CMS without a lot of difficulty. But you're probably thinking, I get that you've built this really quickly, Ryan. Your website looks pretty crap. And you are right, it does look pretty crap. This is a basic framework that HubSpot have provided to just get you into what the CMS can do and all of the different superpowers it can give you to enable you to get your website into HubSpot. But that doesn't mean that it's all the CMS can do. So if up in the top right-hand corner of your HubSpot portal, you can click on this little shop. We're calling it a shop, Nick, or is it a merchant? Or we'll call it a marketplace.
There you go. That was it.
There we go.
Marketplace. Yep.
So if I go to the asset marketplace, it says here that I can find themes, modules, and templates. And there's this great section here where HubSpot have themes that are built specifically for CMS Hub Starter. So I can go in here and I can find a theme that's already been designed for the kind of site that I'm trying to build. So maybe I'm trying to build a site that is designed to attract leads. I've got different business types here, so I can filter out the themes that are available, different page types that I might need. So I might really need a product library page, different features that you know you need, and then different prices. So maybe for today, I'm only interested in free. So let's have a look at which themes are available for free. And there are 5 different ones here that I can choose from that are ready to go for CMS Starter. But even the paid themes aren't overly expensive. So I can sort them by most popular or the highest price, the rating. You can see some of the paid ones here. This one is $7. So we're not going to break the bank by adding a lot of these themes into our website. So lots of different options with lots of different functionality that we can pull from, and there's more being added every day. I logged on today and there were another 2 or 3 that weren't there last time I was on the marketplace. Super simple process, again, to get these themes into your website. Install, and you can see here which pages are included, which templates. And then it's got the different features, so tabs, your blog, anchor links, a dark mode, lots of different functionality, a couple of screenshots about what it's going to look like. And if you really want, you can preview it before you install it. But what we can do is click the and it will install that theme for me. And you can see I've got a couple here where, so when a update comes through to your theme, it's not automatically installed because you might have something set up in your you don't want to be overwritten. But hopefully you're not doing anything too drastic with them. The HubSpot CMS does support child themes these days, so you can create your own version of the theme without without messing up the core code of the theme. So now I've got a ton of different templates I can pick. So if I go back to marketing, website page, my sad little page over here that didn't look that good, I can click on my website page, call this my new theme test. And now where it says your theme, you can click on that and change your theme. So I've got my previews of all the different themes that I've got installed on this portal, and I can pick whichever theme I want. Now the growth theme that we talked about before, that's a fairly basic theme. I think the tech parlance, Nick, is technology preview. So it's really just designed to give you a bit of a taste of what you might be able to do in the CMS. But now you can see I've got a ton more pages in this particular theme. So I can select my template for my homepage. It's brought over my logo already because I've already set that up. Now, when we were looking at this before, we also only looked at modifying the modules that were already on the page. You can see now that I can also bring other modules over from the theme. So this particular theme comes with a range of different modules. So I can bring one over for a stat counter, and I can have my different stats there. Basically any different functionality that you might need, you can bring these in. You can move them around. If you've used the email builder, the experience is very, very similar. But the other thing to remember is there are some common modules in HubSpot. So we can bring something like a video module in, and then we can embed a video from another source. So bring a YouTube video in here, embed it into the page. So very simple experience. So if you work in a small business that can't update their own website, this is a great entry into having a website within HubSpot. Okay, I understand now what power is available to me by using HubSpot, by using the CMS to be able to segment my CRM data, vice versa. So now I want to get a bit more sophisticated. I want to build some workflows once somebody visits my site. I want to build some smart content in there to show different content to different market segments. I want to get really tricky with my split testing and my page optimization. So at that point, you can step up to the pro or the enterprise CMS. But this, I think, is really a no-brainer for any business that's starting out and looking for a website. Now, I'm just checking. Do we have any? So Hayden's asking about any plans for official HubSpot modules, and Nick's kind of answered that one. There are a ton of modules in each theme. A particular requirement, jump in here and go and look at the themes and go, I know that I'm going to want a accordion. I'm not sure why you'd want an accordion. Please don't put accordions in, but I want I want an event, and I want a so now it's giving me a selection of the themes that include those features, and that's actually most of them, because most of them would require that kind of basic functionality. Whereas if I want something like a small product library here, yeah, that's still most of them, which is pretty handy. I will say I'm sort of emphasizing the CMS starter themes today, but there are some of the other CMS themes that you can install. But these ones are the ones that are optimized for the feature set that's in CMS starter.
Well, great.
Now, do we have any other questions today?
No, I think that's pretty much all we have from the floor. I'm just giving you a few minutes to drop any other notes in there around either any of the product announcements from inbound, other random HubSpot questions you might have, or the CMS. I do think that the introduction of CMS starter is an absolute oh gosh, I'm going to say game changer.
Don't say Rubina.
Terrible. But ultimately, it puts it on a level playing field in terms of investment from a business with Squarespace, Wix, and certainly, WordPress, I think, is still very popular amongst people who are, just trying to get started because, oh yeah, I have a vague recollection or knowing of what that is. I think what people forget about is that maintenance side of things with WordPress sites. The fact that HubSpot is just going to be looking after all of the security updates and the plugins and just looking after all of those aspects that support your site. So you don't have to keep upgrading bits and pieces along the way and updating the patches and whatnot. I think, certainly that's a really a strong benefit, I think, because for some people who are starting out, web isn't their forte, and it's really just they know what they do. They just want to be able to share what they do. And I think that what we've seen today with CMS Starter in particular is that it really puts that power back into someone's hands, and you don't have to be a coder at all. I'm glad you resisted the urge, Ryan, and not to flip over to source code mode.
Yeah, no, I did. That was hard for me, but I managed it.
Yeah,
I think the nerd in me, though, the question that I get all the time about HubSpot CMS is it can't possibly be as good as WordPress for SEO. And there's been a couple of examples I've seen where there was one particular example where somebody in a Facebook group was jumping up and down because his SEO was terrible in HubSpot. And there was a very basic error that somebody had made in the theme when they rolled out some custom code in a theme that had broken something to do with their descriptions. In our testing, we can get a site on HubSpot CMS as long as you don't completely forget all of your fundamentals of SEO to rank just as well as a site that's on another platform. HubSpot do a great job of giving you some optimization tools and some tips to remind you that you need to do the right things. You need to have the right headings in there. They do as much as they can besides write the content for you, which I'm guessing is next year's new feature release, Nick. But you think about the sites that we find don't perform in HubSpot. People have done the same things that wouldn't work in WordPress, where they've got 15 megabyte photos as their hero images. They've got, the page takes 30 minutes to download because they've got 700 different things going on. If you take the same basics and build a site in WordPress or HubSpot, you get pretty much the same result SEO-wise. So Hayden's got a question here about, theoretically, how easy would it be to transfer an existing website across the HubSpot CMS? So in the case of the site I was just showing you, the import of the news articles and the blogs, super simple, took me probably 5 minutes to queue it up, and then HubSpot do some magic in the background to pull over all that content. So bringing over existing content from WordPress like that, very simple. They import all of the images into the library and away you go. The other pages, you can rebuild those pages in the CMS. And if you've got an existing site, pick a theme, gives you a bit of an upgrade. Then just copy and paste your content over. Take the opportunity to make some updates. And depending on how many pages you've got, you'd be able to get that done in half a day or a day without too much difficulty. So it's not a big job to transfer an existing website across, but obviously there are very different types of websites around. Some of them are going to be easier to transfer.
But I also think when you're looking at shifting platforms in terms of CMS, it's also an opportunity to review the content. And I kind of go back to your original point, Ryan. You would not have been able to do the work today had you not actually done the prep. Yeah. So, had the copy sorted, had the images at the correct size ready to go, make sure that you had the logo in the correct format, all that kind of thing. And I think that that's what happens with some of these website projects where you're looking at, we'll just migrate across to this new CMS. Certainly in my corporate time, I have been involved in those sorts of projects where ultimately the CMS is outdated and it's no longer being supported, so it has to be moved to a new CMS. But the problem with that is that if you kind of just pick up what you've got and plonk it without really thinking about it, there's a missed opportunity there to optimize the site, and to kind of give it a bit of an update, whether it is the imagery, the copy, improving the copy for SEO. And I think that's what ultimately websites with, the time, that's where I think that is what goes into a great website. It's not just the design or just the way it behaves on mobile versus on a desktop or a laptop screen. But it's also the actual content that's held within that website. Because ultimately, I think even if you had the prettiest design in the world, if the content itself just was of zero value, then, you're probably going to see yourself with high bounce rates, low search rankings and all that kind of thing. So, I think it's two very different projects, Hayden. If it's just a case of, we're going all in on HubSpot, in which case, okay, yep, you're happy with the site as is. The content's recently been reviewed. As Ryan says, you could probably get it done in half a day to a day, assuming that you didn't get pulled off onto anything else. But, it's also, there is that opportunity then to assess, do we need this page in this place? And that's the part that takes time, is all of that planning, and, the content development or edits as they need to occur.
I've seen some very pretty websites that do not convert and do not rank in search. So it's that there is a
yeah. Nick, did you have any thoughts to add to the discussion?
I think you guys have addressed it pretty clearly. The last thing I would probably touch on, and again, it's probably, I don't know if it might not be the best way to go about it, but we also do provide a migration service if you do decide to go with HubSpot. We have a free migration service for up to 20 pages. Now, keep in mind, this would be taking your existing design and our team just moving it over, and allowing a team like Refuel to focus on maybe the more important pieces of the experience, rather than just rebuilding a page exactly the same way it is. So that comes as a part of your purchase with HubSpot. But I guess to your point, Rubina, I think, like you said, it's a fantastic opportunity to give your brand a bit of a refresh, or at least some of the content or assets on the site have a bit of a refresh, in which case you may move away from a direct rip of your existing site, and do something a little bit different. But that option is available to you as well. So keep that in mind.
Great. Alrighty, well, seeing as Hayden doesn't have any further questions, and we've seen how easy it is to get started with HubSpot CMS Starter. And Nick, what a fantastic recap. I think you've saved everyone a lot of time to, a lot of late nights by running through all the key highlights from inbound. I think that the payments feature would be amazing if it was available in Australia.
Fingers crossed, maybe beginning of the year, maybe next year. I hope. We'll see. No promises, but we'll see.
We'll have to keep our eyes peeled on that. And on that note, I think we might close out, just triple checking. So thank you, Hayden, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Hug event. We'll be catching up again before the year is out. So stay tuned to the Adelaide chapter HubSpot user group page for updated information on our final event for the year. Nick, thank you for your time. As always, a pleasure to chat. And Ryan, well, I'll see you momentarily, when we reconvene in the meeting room or whatever.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.